This is From the Sickbed, a podcast on all things disability and chronic illness. I'm Sun.
And I'm Lavender, and from our sick beds to yours, we welcome you to join us and get comfy as you listen in. For today's topic, we really wanted to talk about sick hobbies, or the hobbies that we started doing since we became chronically ill. And this topic, it carries a lot of joy, but it also carries a lot of grief because we want to talk about what we used to do and are no longer able to do, and also what we started doing only after we became sick. And something that's particularly difficult about it for me is being autistic. A lot of these hobbies or activities that I used to do are things that are special interests for me and really enriched my life in a lot of different ways. And not only that, but they helped me regulate my emotions. They helped me cope with autistic burnout and daily life. I really, in some ways, planned my entire life and career before I became sick around these things. And they were a large part of my identity. And so becoming chronically ill and no longer having the ability to do those things really felt like a loss of identity. And of course, carries a lot of grief. Yeah, it's just really difficult to accept that I can't do a lot of those things that I so enjoyed doing, and that really, for some of them, they were lifelong pursuits and were just like built into the fabric of my life. And yeah, so here we are. and life goes on, and you figure out what else you can do when everything falls apart.
Very well said. Yeah, it is a very, I think, emotionally complicated topic. You could say, like you said, 'cause there are some things that bring us joy, and then there's been things that we've either had to let go of, or we've had to try to adapt and do the things we love, but it's different now. It's not the same.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like I can relate to what you're saying about how being autistic plays into it as well. But because I also have ADHD, I feel like I also have a different experience with this particular area of life. So I think it'll be interesting to get into it and hear both of our perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really interesting, I think, just hear from any chronically ill or disabled person how much these interest shifts in your life when you're no longer able to do things the same way. So yeah, I'm really interested to hear what things come up for both of us. Did you want to start with the things that we used to do that we can't do now?
Yeah, we can start with that. Yeah, shifting from pre-sick to post-sick life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, I feel like the big ones I used to do were very similar to what you're saying. They were kind of tied into my identity in a way. I think really the main one, or possibly the only one really, was writing. Writing was a big one that, I mean, before I got sick, it had gotten really hard for me to continue writing just because, life happens, and then with autism and ADHD, it's things go all over the place sometimes. But that one was the one that since I was a kid, that was like my thing. I was like the writer of the family, I guess.
Mm.
And it's ironic how when I got sick, I remember because I had so much time now to myself and like with my thoughts, I was getting all these ideas for things I wanted to write.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so frustrating not being able to follow through with it. And I would like write down my ideas so I wouldn't forget and I could come back to it next time. And then like there were multiple ideas for like books that I wanted to write, and I couldn't do it. Like it's hard to explain and put it into words, but like just sitting at a computer or whatever and like literally not being able to put the words together, whether from cognitive dysfunction or fatigue or
Mm-hmm.
everything that's going on. And I did have to shift it a bit. I went from mainly writing like fiction and fiction and nonfiction, to having to accept that long form writing just wasn't possible for me, at least for now.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while, I got into poetry, which was a really nice, I don't want to call it transition because it's still writing, but it's just different.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it was more accessible for me because poetry can also be abstract in a way that a book can't really.
Yeah.
And but even that, like, it's gotten really hard for me to. I haven't written poetry in months because it's just not the same. Like my brain's not the same, my body's obviously not the same,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's been a really hard shift to come to terms with personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think something that's kind of along those lines for me that I used to do, it was reading. So I was a really voracious reader for my entire life since childhood, and I like started reading literature, like classic literature in elementary late elementary and middle school, and not for school, like on my own. And it just hasn't been the same since I got sick. Like I can still read. I can read like articles or like other short form things, but I haven't been able to sit down and read a book, a physical book, cover to cover, in several years. Like I did read a few books more so like when I first got sick because it wasn't as difficult then, but for similar reasons, like you said, the cognitive impairment and the brain fog and just the exertion, the cognitive exertion of reading is extremely difficult. I can't focus the same way I used to because I used to sit, and if it was a small book, I could read it in a day or two. Um, but I have tried to get through books and I struggle to get through a single chapter, and then like I won't be able to pick it back up. And so I still enjoy reading. I like to read. I've tried to make my way through some audiobooks, and even then it's very slow and it's still difficult. And I still enjoy it, but nothing is the same as the way that I used to read before.
Yeah, reading was a big one for me too, but it has gotten harder even before I got sick, like as an adult, like getting into books and stuff.
True.
So that wasn't as hard of a shift for me, I guess. But yeah, like I was a really big reader, and it does make me sad that like there are books I want to read. I have like a Goodreads, I have my
Mm-hmm.
list there that I want to read, and it's yeah, it's really difficult. I've tried. Well, I don't know if I could say I've tried the audiobooks because I haven't really. I have some saved.
Mm-hmm.
I think I actually have one on hold right now. uh, Online,
Mm.
like what's it called? Some sort of Libby, I think the Libby app.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I just haven't even started it because I know it's going to take like a lot of brain power to focus on it, and
Yeah.
I have to use that for other things. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And it's painful, this one as well, because like a lot of the times when I am reading, I'm reading medical studies to try to research and read up on my illnesses so I can stay up to date with like any potential new treatments or just anything that I should be on the lookout for, or like just all the, complexities of my care, things that I not even my doctors are reading. I wish they were reading, but things that help me just advocate for myself and stay alive, like out of necessity, like being forced to do medical research to literally just survive. And like, yeah, it's great that I can do that, I guess, but like, I don't want to know all this shit that I know about all my fucking illnesses and stuff, stuff that I didn't ever want to have to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's no joy in it.
You're right, it's not for fun. It's not like,
Yeah.
so this is not really a hobby of mine, but yeah, it's how I've transformed my reading abilities.
Yeah.
And even then it's limited. I don't have the energy or the ability to like research endlessly. But yeah.
Yeah. I feel you. Another one that I like have had to stop doing altogether, like I can't do at
Mm-hmm.
all anymore, is cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Before I got sick, I wouldn't say I was like a really good cook, but like I did really enjoy cooking food for myself and trying new recipes and also having other people try my food,
Mm-hmm.
to see if they liked it. Like it was a source of joy for me that I think I really took for granted uh
Mm-hmm.
pre-sick life. And I really miss it. Like my partner Michael has had to become the chef for for me,
Mm-hmm.
and he has done really well. Like when I first got sick, he wasn't really into cooking. He didn't really know what to do, and
Mm-hmm.
he's come a long way. And yeah, thankfully he makes me good food. But like, there are times when I get really frustrated that I can't just get up and go to the kitchen and make myself something.
Yeah.
Um, Something even as simple as like a snack. It doesn't even have to be a meal, and I just can't.
Mm-hmm.
That's been one that, yeah, has had a lot of, or has come with a lot of grief and anger as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, towards, I guess, just life and like how things panned out. And also, like, sometimes towards myself or like my body.
Yeah.
Like, even though I know it, like, it's not my fault,
Mm-hmm.
but you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you're just like, why can't you just do this for me, body? you
Yeah,
know?
it's really frustrating. Like when you just something that seems was so accessible and simple and achievable before, so much so that you didn't even have to think about it. You just did it, to like not being able to do it at all is really frustrating. You're like, why can't I just like do that thing? but your body won't let you. So yeah, it's a very frustrating feeling. I I had a similar progression with cooking, but this is actually something for me that is one of the I don't have a lot of things in this category that are hobbies or interests I was able to do before or I was interested in before that I still do now. One of those things for me is baking. I've always really liked baking. I can still do baking and I still bake. It's just very different. I mean, it's not the same. Um and I actually wasn't able to bake for a long time because I didn't live in an accessible apartment, and for a while I wasn't able to do it at all until I moved to my new apartment with a mostly accessible kitchen. And yeah, it's like one of the few things that I used to do that I can do, but cooking, I cannot I cannot do most of the cooking. I can cook sometimes, but also similarly my partner is the cook now and makes almost all the meals, and I can't cook on a regular basis. And yeah, that loss of control, like, and not being able, like, cook food is so personal. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
so like I say food is one of the few joys I have left in my life. Being chronically ill, like eating, like just eating, like eating good
Mm-hmm.
food. But like there's things that I used to love making for myself that I haven't been able to make in years. And and my partner, he learned to cook a lot because he also didn't cook before, and I had to teach him a lot because he didn't know how to cook a lot of things. And he's gotten really good at cooking. He's gotten a lot better at cooking. But still, it's not the same as just like being able to
Yeah.
cook that thing that you love that you used to make all the time.
Yeah. I feel like it's also um like, oh my god, I don't know what I was about to say. I don't know what word I'm trying to think of, but like because we're both autistic
Yeah.
and we have our preferences and
Our
our
same
things with like
foods.
texture and
Yeah.
yeah, our same foods. Yeah, that aspect of it can be difficult.
Hmm.
Um I mean, thankfully it's been a few years and like my yeah, but Michael's done a pretty good job of making things for me and I'm not like, ugh, this is gross, you know? But yeah, there's still some things where like I wish I could make it myself because I know exactly what to do. You know, I know
Hmm.
exactly how I like it. So yeah, that can add to the frustration.
Yeah, for sure. One of the biggest things for me, for things I used to do, is martial arts and more physical activities, hiking, martial arts, traveling. I'm kind of lumping this all in together because it just involves a lot of like, I don't know, movement, yoga, all of those types of
Yeah.
things. Just working out. Like I went to the gym a lot. Like I enjoyed working out, being active,
Mm.
being on my feet. I practiced martial arts for years and studied like all these different forms from Jeet Kune Do to Hapkido to Kali to Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And I really loved it. Like I was good at it too. Not to just brag, but I was intimidated. Like people were scared of me, and it felt good, and it was like really empowering. And I undoubtedly, like, I would have kept going. I would have kept doing it as long as I was able. And I even tried. I remember going to a new martial arts gym when I first moved to Chicago, or not when I first moved. It was like a few months after I moved here, but I was only able to go like once or twice, and it just completely knocked it out of me. I didn't even know I had any then, but it was obvious like
Mm.
I I just couldn't do it. It was like exhausting, and I didn't really understand why at the time, but yeah, it's really sad to not be able to do that anymore.
Yeah. I always forget that you did that stuff. Like, it's so wild to me because I cannot picture you doing that stuff now. But I wish I could have seen you fight because that would have been really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just
I can't. I want to see you be scary.
I was scary. Like new guys would come to the gym and they would be like partnered with me or whatever. And I would just be like working through different movements or drills with them. And their eyes would get so big because like they didn't expect me to be that strong or
Yeah.
fast or scary. They were just like, and you know, big guy comes into a gym and he's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to be so awesome at this. And he's like just starting out. And
Immediately old.
yeah, and then put him in a hold and he's tapping out. He's like, oh my God. I mean, I had one guy tell me, like, when we were like partnered together, he was like, you're really good at this. But he said it with a hint of fear in his voice.
Yeah. It's like, oh shit, what did I get myself
Uh,
into?
he's like, I picked you because you're the smallest person here, and I thought it would be easy.
Oh my god. Yeah, I'd pay money to see that.
Yeah. So,
But yeah, the more physical activities.
mhm.
I mean, yeah, obviously, like, we can't do
We
that anymore.
can't. Mm-mm.
I wasn't as active as you were. I did really enjoy hiking since I grew up in California. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
spent a lot of time hiking the mountains. I do really miss that.
Yeah.
I guess since I am in Florida, though, it's not as much like in my face because there's no mountains here, you know? So at least it's not like, oh, the mountains are right outside and I can't go, you know? But I miss going for walks and
Mm-hmm.
going to the beach and swimming. I loved swimming.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned yoga. Like
Yep.
literally a month before I got sick, I had just finished becoming a yoga
I
instructor.
remember that.
It, yeah. And yeah, can't do it anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
Yeah, and I I actually yoga was one of those things early on. I was still able to do right at the beginning. I remember you also trying to keep doing it at the beginning as well when you first got sick. But
Yeah,
you know, it became obvious pretty quickly that it was becoming more difficult for me.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I kept trying because, like the stereotype, I guess, or I don't know if that's the right word, but people are always like, "Oh, just exercise and you'll feel better,"
Mhm. Just do
And
yoga.
yoga's
Just do
like,
yoga. They always
"Yeah,
say yoga
do
it
yoga.
helps.
Just do yoga."
Right.
And yeah, I tried, and now like the closest thing I can do to yoga, like I just do some stretches in bed, but it's like not yoga at all.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I can do PT and they're not like exercises. They're like really
hmm
gentle
Stretching.
stretching like low resistance, low rep little physical therapy things. And yeah, not the same as the yoga I used to practice. And having practiced yoga for years before I got sick and continuing after I got sick, it didn't prevent me from getting sick and it didn't prevent me
hmm
from getting worse. Actually, it probably just like, you know, contributed to me declining because I was still
Yeah,
trying to practice yoga daily, even when it was difficult.
yeah, yeah. I remember after I got sick going to see doctors, and they're always like, "Oh, you're so young," and they're
Hmm.
asking me questions about before I got sick and
Right.
like the things I could do and stuff. And they're like, "Oh, like you were exercising before," and I would always be like, "Yeah," and I had just become a yoga instructor, and
Hmm.
like I tried to be like I was active, and yes, like it didn't prevent anything. And
Exactly.
they're always like, "Oh wow, okay,"
Yeah, yeah.
and they're like shocked.
Yeah, because in their minds, I think someone who's sick has just given up and they were already unwell to begin with, and that's why they got sick. And as we know now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you did before, how
Yeah.
fit or unfit you were. Really, it doesn't matter. Like, it can happen to anyone. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the thing about you when you're talking about hiking, that I think that's one of the things I miss most. Not hiking itself, but like getting into nature. The fact that I could
Mm.
like get into these really like I went backpacking in the wilderness before. Like, I really enjoyed getting to these places where I could be totally immersed in nature and not around people and just feel really at peace. And I loved but now it's so rare that I'm able to get out anywhere. It has to be entirely wheelchair accessible, and I'll crash from no matter what. So that's a huge loss for me, as I just really miss getting to be in those spaces and just to, I mean, it feels good for your whole brain and body to be in nature that way. And as I said, the times I am able to get in nature, it's only limited to where I can go in my wheelchair and for a short amount of time and within a, hour's drive or so, because I can't travel either. So,
Yeah. That is something I really miss too, and I've felt a lot of grief over not being able to be in nature like I was before. Like the closest I can get to it now is my backyard. And just because there's like a little man-made lake behind
mhm.
our house, that's like I can sit there and kind of pretend that I'm like in the woods or something, because there's some ducks swimming, and
Mhm.
might see like a turtle pop their head out, but it's nowhere near the same as being out in the middle of a forest or something. Like you're the only person there, or that you can see at least.
Yeah.
And yeah, the fresh air and the quiet, that is something that is a really difficult loss for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I guess the only other thing I wrote down for these hobbies I can't do anymore is going to concerts and seeing live music. I really loved going to
Mm,
concerts, and I have been to shows since I got sick, but because of COVID and you just the energy and honestly the money, like I don't have as much money now. I'm like poor and disabled. I don't have money to spend on concert tickets. The COVID risk is so high, especially at really big concerts. And just the exertion of getting out, and not to mention the fact that a lot of music venues aren't wheelchair accessible. They aren't. There are many, many ones in Chicago, especially DIY venues. They're never accessible. And I used to go to a lot of DIY type shows like in college and everything. Um,
what is that?
like someone just like having a show at their house or in their basement, like a
Oh, okay. A
mhm,
house show.
like a house show, yeah.
I've never I've never heard that before. DIY show.
Yeah, it's just a term like people use for, shows you just
Huh.
put on yourself or with your friends. Like it's like,
Oh,
at an
okay.
unofficial venue type thing.
Yeah.
They call them like DIY venues sometimes for that reason. It'll be like a
Hmm.
house that they do shows at or something. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so not being able to do that in nearly the same way has been really difficult because I really enjoyed that. Especially now, like, well, this is like getting into things I started doing after I became sick, but now that I do play and write my own music, it's even like more like I'm missing out from that part of the scene.
I hadn't thought of that as one of like the list of my hobbies, but yeah, that is something I miss as well. I did like going to shows and concerts when I could, but they were like I really enjoyed seeing and listening to live music and stuff and seeing the artists I love, but it would also be an incredibly stressful time for me because all the people and could easily get like overstimulated, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I do have good memories of going to concerts, and I do wish I could do that now. But yeah, just thinking about how it would be now, like obviously the COVID risk is not worth. It's just too much. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, the physical inaccessibility of most spaces,
Mm-hmm.
it would just be like a nightmare trying
Yeah.
to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to a few smaller shows, in these past few years in my wheelchair. Most of them that hasn't been completely accessible. Like I've been able to get in the door, but it's not like ADA accessible even. And then even if you're in there and the venue is accessible, when you're in a wheelchair at a show, like people have leaned on me. They stand in front of you and I can't even see the stage because everyone's just like standing in front of you, so I can't even see anything anyways. Um, and like no one will talk to you or look at you, like the social inaccessibility.
Yeah,
So
people are
it's
assholes.
not the same. It's just not the same. Like even the few times I have been able to go, it's just sadly very different and limited compared to before.
Yeah.
Do you have any other final former hobbies or interests before we move on to things we do now?
Yeah, the last one was photography. I was really into photography before I got sick. I did mostly film photography, and yeah, being in nature was like a big part of it too. Like whenever I'd be out, um, and you see animals or just beautiful trees or plants and scenery, I loved it. I loved taking photos and then waiting to get them developed and see how they turned out. And also, before I got sick, I was working as a photographer. Not the kind that I would have wanted to do. I was doing like yearbook photos and stuff, but it was something that like I actually still enjoyed.
Mm,
Like even that kind of photography, you know.
yeah.
And yeah, now because I'm bedbound most of the time, it's like I don't have anything to photograph really.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nothing that I would want to, at least, except for my dogs. But yeah, I haven't touched my film cameras in years because
Mm-hmm.
I can't go somewhere to get the film developed, you
Yeah.
know, and I can't do it myself.
It's also
So yeah,
expensive
that's
to
been, yeah, it
get
is
it developed.
expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been a hard one
Yeah.
to let go of.
That's really
I hope I can
difficult.
do it someday, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for now, I just look at my past photos and reminisce.
Yeah. That did remind me of one last thing I forgot about. I guess it's difficult because it wasn't really a hobby, like, but similar to like you like actually did photography for work, but I for my art career, like I still make art now, but my capacity to make physical art has greatly diminished and it's very difficult and very different. And I used to make these like massive, immersive, interactive installations with all of these different elements. And I would dye and print my own fabric yardage and make these soft sculptures and all of these other like printed elements and hanging elements for these installations. And I was doing that when I first got sick, which I think contributed to my decline because it was such physical work. This is what I pushed myself to do in grad school. And then pretty much right after I finished grad school, I declined massively and couldn't work that same way anymore. And yeah, it was something that I had pretty much built my entire like art practice around doing, and it's just not attainable anymore. And I can't make that same type of work that involves so much physical making. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. I hadn't I forgot that you actually did that.
Yeah.
Like in school and stuff.
I almost forgot too. It's a long time. It feels like a long time ago. It's not that long ago, but it feels like ages.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just things changed, and my body can't do those things and make those things in the same way anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, let's get into what we can do now, what we
Yeah,
like to do now.
yes, that's a little more like happy, like the things we still
Now
like.
that we've bummed everyone
Yeah,
out, let's
no. Everyone stopped listening because it was too depressing. They're like, "Oh God."
oh yeah. Things that we do now that maybe we didn't do before we got sick, we didn't do as much,
Mm-hmm.
that have now become a big source of maybe comfort or joy for us.
Yeah.
Looking at my list, there isn't really much, to be honest. um, like, there's a lot that I can't do now, but
Mm-hmm.
the two that I did write about were video games
Mm-hmm.
and crochet. And video games, like I did play before, but it was more like not very often,
Mm-hmm.
and probably in more like a group setting, like if my brothers wanted to play something
Mm-hmm.
or friends or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, now like after I got sick, that is one of the few things that I'm able to do that doesn't completely wipe me out.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the main one being Animal Crossing. It's a way, like, it's low, like, there's no pressure really.
Yeah.
It's a distraction and kind of like a way to live vicariously, you know, through my little character that
Yeah.
can do all these things that I can't do. So, yeah, that one, I would say most of the time is the most accessible for me, but yeah, it does have its difficulties as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my hands hurt a lot after I play. It's hard on my hands. And yeah, also the cognitive part can be hard. But yeah, it's something that I often turn to now when I need to have some fun or just something a little joyful.
Mm-hmm. Video games. That's something I did. Even when I first got sick, I didn't really do that. But the sicker I got, that's when I discovered it. Like after I moved a couple of years ago, I got a Switch for the first time. And yeah, Animal Crossing was a huge revelation for me because I hadn't played earlier in the pandemic when everyone was playing. So I kind of missed out on that, like, the hype of that. But then when I finally got
Mm-hmm.
to play, I started it. And, you're used to games where it's like something happens and you die. And it's like, oh, you're like freaking out. I started playing and I was like, oh, like, I can't die. Nothing bad is going to happen. Like, it's just like chill. I could just go
I
around.
can't die.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, nothing terrible is going to happen to me in this game. And I was like, that's so nice. How cute and how chill that you could just walk around and do your little activities and nothing bad
Yeah.
will happen.
But besides getting attacked by insects,
That is
nothing bad will
stressful. Yeah,
happen.
that is the stressful part. That can happen sometimes. Yeah, but even then, like even when you get attacked by the insects, like the worst that happens is you just get stung and pass out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a more preferable way of life for sure compared to not like our real lives.
Yeah. Yeah, and what you said about participating in things you can't in real life, like the seasons change in Animal Crossing, and I can do things in there like building snowmen and like dressing up for
Hmm.
Halloween and things that I don't necessarily get to do or don't get to do at all in real life.
Yeah.
Um, so
Get to garden,
garden and just
go
like
for a swim.
travel, go to other islands and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Animal Crossing is
Yeah.
a good one. I have played other games too. Like I did play Breath of the Wild, and I loved it, but it was kind of bad because I got too into it, and
Mm.
it's stressful because you will die. and and I would get sucked into it though, and I would play for hours a day, and then I would crash because I was so into it
Mm.
that I was like pushing myself and I didn't realize how much energy I was actually exerting playing. And then the next day I would be like completely wiped out, and I'd be like, oh, I guess I overdid it.
Yeah. I've done that with Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Actually, very recently, like last week, I played multiple days in a row, which I don't really do because I know like
Mm,
it's not good for me.
hmm.
But yeah, I got into one of those fixations where I
Yeah.
was like, I can't stop, and I'm like, I haven't played in a few days, and my hands are still hurting, like still recovering.
Yeah.
My poor thumbs. They were doing too much.
Yeah, I believe it. I know when I was playing Paper Mario, I like they have all these like battle moves where you have to like move the joystick a lot or
Mm.
like use your thumbs a lot. And like my hand would literally cramp up from playing. I feel like I can't play anymore. I have to stop. Like my hand would be like twitching after playing. I'm
Oh
like,
my god.
okay, that's enough.
Yeah. So fun though.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like I can
That's
do
a good
it
one.
in bed, and even if I
Hmm.
only play for a little while, like it's still some it's engaging, it's enriching without being too taxing most of the time, unless you get sucked in.
Yeah.
But
Depending on what you're playing.
mhm.
Yeah. I was gonna say we need to play Don't Starve
Don't Starve
Together
Together.
again.
that
I miss it.
that is a fun game, but that is also a stressful game because you die.
Yeah. When you were talking about dying in the game, it made me think of that and how when we first started and we didn't know we could adjust the difficulty.
Right, we were playing on like ultra hard level, and we're like, "Why is this
Oh
so
my
hard?
god.
We're dying like every
There's
20
skeletons everywhere.
Yeah, just our bodies littered throughout the landscape. And you
Yeah.
lose your things. Every time you die, you lose all your stuff that you collected too.
Yeah. That was so frustrating.
Mhm.
But when we actually like got the hang of it and fixed the difficulty,
Yeah.
it is really fun.
Yeah,
And
it's
I miss it.
fun.
It's like it has a good amount of, I was gonna say stress, but like
Like
it's just
stimulation.
challenging.
Yeah.
Challenging. But it's not too much.
Mhm.
I mean, the way we play it now.
Yes. Yeah.
um but yeah,
Yeah, that was a good
that's
one.
one game that is pretty good.
One you recommended to me, we wanted to play together until we found out we couldn't play it like over online, was Death Squared, the puzzle game.
Oh yeah.
But I did play that one, and it was really fun. Like you can your little like character dies, but it kind of doesn't matter. Like you just start over. So because it's a puzzle
Yeah.
game, it's not like a role
Yeah.
playing game or anything. But yeah, I really like puzzle games as well.
Mhm.
They're pretty chill.
Me too. They're like gratifying when
Yeah.
you get it right.
Hmm.
I haven't played that in a while. I should play that. soon.
I finished it. We beat it. Like we played all of
Oh
it.
wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
Mhm.
Yeah, we have not even come close to beating it.
Some of the levels are really hard. Like
Mm.
took us forever to solve, and you can go back and see how long it took you to solve each level, and the difference was like embarrassing.
I mean, that's the point though, right?
No, it
It
was
gets
fun.
harder as you go.
Yeah, it's a challenge, and
Yeah.
it was fun.
Speaking of challenges, the other one, the other hobby that I do now that actually pretty much just started very recently is crocheting. And I'm saying that I started recently, even though I did kind of start like a year or two ago, but now I'm actually gone into it.
Hmm.
That is something that I wasn't really sure I would be able to do because, you have to use your hands for
Hmm.
that. But yeah, it's become a hobby that I really enjoy now that has a good amount of challenge and also gratification from creating something and being able to see it and touch it with my own hands. And it's been really cool. I'm almost done with my first project, and it's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
I see now why a lot of sick people crochet.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's funny because last month is when I started crocheting again. I have crocheted since I was a kid, but I would go through periods where I'd be really into it and I'd crochet a lot, and then I wouldn't crochet for like literally years. But yeah, last month I still have all my crochet supplies, so I started crocheting again too, and it's I mean, you can crochet in bed. I crochet in bed or in my like comfy chair chilling. And yeah, it's something that I've always liked about it is like just being able to kind of relax while you're doing it, and it like empties my brain out while I'm doing it. Like, I'm not thinking or ruminating about other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not at the point yet where it's kind of mindless
Mm.
because I'm learning, so I,
Mhm.
I do have to pay attention.
Mhm.
But yeah, it does keep your mind or my mind busy and off of other things that are going on that I don't want to think about.
Yeah.
I think that's why I have gotten into it now because the things in my life are so hard and there's just a lot going on that I needed something other than the other distractions and like hobbies I already have.
Mhm.
I needed something else to add to the rotation,
Yeah.
and it has helped and become like a source of comfort.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's just nice like having some physical product that you made, not as a product like consumerist product, but just a
Hmm.
physical item that you crafted with your own hands, which is why I've always loved fiber arts. This is why I got into fiber art versus other types of art, for that purpose, being able to tangibly feel it and just make something, a thing from nothing.
Yeah, that is something I did really miss from my life before being sick. Because, I mean, there were other hobbies that I didn't really mention because they were more like. This is where my ADHD comes into play and makes things difficult for me because there are a lot of different creative hobbies that I've done, but because of how my brain works, it's hard for me to just stick to one.
Mhm.
And I would just jump around and not really get better at any of them because I didn't spend enough time
Yeah.
like learning, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like honing my skills. But yeah, I do miss those things. Like painting was one of them. that I would come back to periodically that I was not good at it. And yeah, it wasn't something that I was really skillful at or even like proud of, but it was something that I could make with my own hands and have a finished
Mm-hmm.
product and be like, I made that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I didn't like how it turned out, at least it gave me something to do, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I like that part of crochet for sure. It's like feeling that sort of need for me again.
I I forget where I saw this. It was like something online where it was a new mom who was struggling with like her sense of identity and being able to do things that weren't just taking care of her family. And I think I can't remember if it was like her therapist or whoever, but someone in her life said to try to do one thing every day that can't be undone. As in just something that you can do like where you can see your own efforts. If you cook for someone, the food gets eaten, the dishes get washed, it's gone away. If you do the laundry, it's like you're just a never-ending cycle of just doing the laundry, like the laundry gets put away, you have nothing to show for
Yeah,
from
like
your
progress.
existence. Yeah, from anything that's like a result of you or your interests. And so I forget what she ended up doing, but that made me think of like being able to make something, and it doesn't even have to be physical. Like it could be a poem, it could be like making something, it could be, you know, rearranging your island on Animal Crossing, but something that is like a thing that you do and then like you can enjoy and you can look back on and you can kind of like, you know, savor and relish it and see proof that basically proof that you exist when
Yeah,
otherwise you are not really seen or acknowledged in your daily life.
yeah. That is something, I mean, I think it's really important for everyone, but
Yeah.
especially when you're sick and disabled and the majority of your existence is just trying to stay alive and
Mm,
like well enough to take care of yourself. And yeah, like I can see why so many chronically ill people and disabled people have hobbies that I feel like it kind of gives you even a sense of purpose in a way,
mm,
you know? Like you said, it's something to do other than what you have to do.
mhm.
I guess is that a good way to put it? Like it's not a necessarily a necessity. I don't need to crochet to live,
Right.
but it's something that is just for me,
Mhm.
and you know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, it's not an obligation. It's not,
Yeah,
especially when otherwise our time is probably spent taking care of ourselves or doing medical admin or going to medical appointments and even just like doing things to make sure we don't get worse, like resting so we don't get worse, like things that you don't really see anything out of. Yes, it's good to do those things and to take care of yourself and try to not get worse or like decline rapidly in your health, but those are also things that really just kind of go unseen and really can drag you down in your day-to-day life and get to be like really they're a burden. Like we don't choose to do those things either.
yeah. I was gonna say something, but it I lost it.
No. Yeah, that reminded me another hobby I started doing after I got sick is I started writing music. And I relearned the piano and started writing music for the first time. I played piano when I was younger. I took piano lessons my whole childhood, but it was just like classical piano. I didn't write my own music then. I never wrote any music for myself. I just like learned pieces and played them or performed them, and did that for a really long time, and then stopped playing piano as I got busy with life and college and all of that. But after I got sick, I really had a desire to play piano again. And when I started playing again, it was like something was just unlocked. And I started writing music for the first time in my whole life. And I think a big reason why I like felt compelled to do that was the need to have something that felt like it was my own and that felt like it was really an expression of me when I was struggling more with making physical art the more time went on. It was like another way to express myself that is still difficult. Like I definitely crash from playing music and from singing, but like nothing feels as good as when I'm able to play and sing and play something that is something I wrote and something that's like an expression of my soul and who I am and what I go through. Um and and it feels like a similar creative muscle as making art, but again, it's even if I'm just sitting down to play for 5 minutes, it's something that I can do. I can still do. So,
I don't know what I was gonna say. I'm getting brain fog.
oh no.
um, yeah, I don't know. I'm losing it.
No.
I don't know. I was just listening. I really like, listening to someone talk and like you start thinking of something to add. I
Uh-huh.
was just listening. I wasn't thinking of anything to add. Um,
That's fine.
except for like just thinking about your album
Mm.
and doing a little plug for it because
Yeah.
you worked very hard on
Yeah.
it and it's very good.
Go listen to my album. Depressed in the Sun. But
I like
yeah.
the name because I know it has nothing to do with me, but my name is in it.
I know, how funny, because I had the name before I even met you, and then there, lo and behold,
Yeah. When you first told me the name, I didn't say anything, but I was like,
is this about
it's
me?
me.
Is this song about me? Yeah. Mm, that's funny. Yeah, just a funny little coincidence.
hmm The only thoughts I have aren't about specific hobbies, but more about like what they give to us or offer
Mm,
in our lives, like the benefits.
yeah.
And I guess specifically what we could be going through as chronically ill people that makes hobbies like these so important for our well-being, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think because we deal with so much on a daily basis, whether it's stress from medical admin stuff or our health in general or like finances,
Our symptoms,
could
pain.
yeah, our symptoms, grief, different kinds of grief
Mhm.
or grief over multiple things going on,
Mhm.
ableism.
Yeah.
Um, there are so many things that cause a lot of pain in our lives that don't really have like an expiration date. And for a while, I didn't really have much to, yeah, like help me cope, I guess, besides like dissociating. And
Mm-hmm.
for a while, all I could do was watch TV. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my baseline was so low that I couldn't really handle much else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember I would try playing Animal Crossing, and like I wouldn't be able to play again for like a month or two.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I do feel really grateful that I can now handle a bit more, and something like even learning or starting a new hobby, because it's something to counteract all the bad shit, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think it's something really vital in our lives that maybe isn't always seen that way, or like from the outside looking in, maybe isn't given the importance or like even respect that it deserves. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in general, hobbies can kind of be framed as like superfluous or even wasteful activities. A lot of people see hobbies that way, especially if they're not like making you money and if they're not like a revenue stream. And
Yeah.
a lot of people like will try to pressure you to monetize your hobbies and like all of that stuff. And
Hmm.
then on the flip side, it seems like a lot of times there's this ableist perception that when you're chronically ill, you should be focusing only on your health and only doing things to quote unquote get better. And you should be chasing like every
Hmm.
single doctor, every single possible treatment, every single like avenue or possibility, no matter how like impossible or far fetched it is to
Hmm.
get better. And if you're not doing all of those things, then you're like not a good sick, you're like a bad sick person,
Yeah.
because you're not doing the absolute most. And so, yeah, if someone sees you spending your time on limited hobbies, there's also the judgment that, oh, like, well, if you can do that, you should be working, or you could be making more money, or you could be doing whatever. And it's actually a real thing. Like, even in disability applications, they will grill you about what you do in your free time, and they will like interrogate you about your hobbies, because if you are able to do XYZ thing, they will use that as a way to deny you disability benefits. And it doesn't just happen like formally within like the benefit system, it happens like from people in our lives too. People who might, think and shame you, thinking you should be doing more if you're doing a hobby, when we know that the very like limited time that we spend on doing our hobbies does not automatically translate to being able to do something like as taxing as work. That is, especially when work is a highly controlled environment where you don't have the choice over how long you're working or what you're doing. Playing Animal Crossing 30 minutes once a week doesn't translate into a full-time fucking job, obviously. But people get these ideas about it. And yeah, like you said, like it's really important for us to have any sort of outlet or expression or just activity that is only for us, especially when so much of our lives is out of our control. Our illnesses are out of our control, like our health is out of our control, our even like a lot of times like our doctors and like how we're treated and all of that is out of our control too, and how other people react to us and our illness also out of our control. And getting to choose what few things we can do to pass the time and bring us joy and help us feel like we're just doing something for ourselves is really important.
Yeah. The sense of control is a big part of it, I think. Like when you mentioned that, I was like, oh
Mm.
yeah, like there are so many things that we don't have control over, including our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And that also includes our ability to do the things that we enjoy,
Right.
to
Yeah.
do our hobbies. So when we are able to do it,
Mm-hmm.
like that is a win.
Mm.
That is a triumph. And yeah, I really hate how people just try to like take that away or make it seem like something like you said wasteful or unproductive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, maybe it is unproductive. Who gives a shit? I don't. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, like even sometimes within myself, like I catch myself kind of thinking that way sometimes. Like if I'm playing Animal Crossing for an hour,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be doing something productive. I should be cleaning or, doing medical admin or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But yeah, I would say stuff like that, like hobbies, things that are just for us, they're just ours, and bring some comfort or joy, distraction, whatever. They it's also an important part of our, I don't know, what is there a word for, I guess just like the upkeep of us. You know what I mean? I think it's part of taking care of ourselves,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
as well as taking our meds and
Yeah.
going to see our doctors.
It's part of our well-being as much as anything else is.
Enrichment.
Yeah.
Enrichment. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah, like we can't
Yeah.
be like completely deprived of any and all enrichment, trapped in the
Mhm.
same fucking room or apartment or whatever, wherever you are, wherever you are restricted to
Mhm.
by your illness. Um, yeah, like if that were an animal, that would be animal cruelty. And
Mhm.
when it's for a person, it's very cruel. And I did also want to say that as important as it is, like for your enrichment and well-being, and I think like we were talking about, it's important that we're able to do these things. I don't want people to feel bad if you're sick and disabled and you're not able to do any hobbies, or you haven't found what you're able to do yet, or you're struggling with it, or maybe you're sick and you are still working full time and you don't have energy for anything else outside of work and you can't do anything for yourself, or you're so sick you're not able to work, you're bedbound and you're not able to do anything at all, like you're not able to do hobbies, kind of like what you were saying when you were like so limited, like you would play Animal Crossing and you couldn't do it again for months. um yeah, that just to not feel bad that um in many ways it is a privilege to be able to have the energy and time and money to spend on hobbies, and as much as they are necessary and vital to like our actual like well-being and survival and mental health, that it's, I don't want to say it's okay, but don't beat yourself up over it if your circumstances don't allow it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you thought of that because, yeah, it when I was worse than I am now, like my baseline was worse, it did feel really shitty, like seeing other people maybe on Instagram posting about their hobbies or whatever, and I'd be like, I can't do that. I can't do stuff like that. And yeah, it's really hard. And I wouldn't want anyone to feel badly about themselves if they're not able to do things like that. And I would also say I feel like things that maybe other people wouldn't qualify as hobbies, but that were like my only way to do something other than, you know what I mean, like survival things. Like I would even say like listening to music can be a hobby, you know? Like I said,
Yeah.
watching TV could literally be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And um I don't know what I was gonna I don't know. I'm a mess. I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, it
Let's just cut this part out.
it could be like
Just
it could be literally anything. Like I like have this window film that's rainbow and it casts rainbows into my room. It's not really a hobby, but kind of like I like watching how the rainbows like shine into my room every day and they look different. Um and for a while, like they shine onto my bed and onto my pillow, and I used to just take a picture of my pillow with the rainbows on it. And I
mm-hmm.
did that a lot. Like I randomly have a lot of pictures just of the different like lighting of my pillow and
Yeah,
uh,
that's photography.
right, that's photography. But I don't show anyone. I don't like to even talk about it. I don't it's maybe not really a hobby to other people, but I don't know, like you just kind of get really your world becomes really small when you get sick. And sometimes those
Mm-hmm.
little things you can appreciate them and maybe even enjoy them in ways that other people wouldn't even notice. And maybe that is a
Yeah,
hobby for you. At my old apartment, I could see out my window and I had a view of like the street, and I liked people watching. I would just lay in bed, unable to do anything. And I used to watch people out the window, and maybe not a hobby, but people watching, it can be a way to pass the time. But yeah, sick hobbies can be things that maybe you didn't think were a hobby.
yeah. I think a good way to define a hobby is just how you choose to pass your time,
Yeah,
really. Like,
yeah.
yeah. And that, like I said, that could be anything.
Hmm. This has been From the Sickbed. Thank you for joining us in sickness and solidarity. You can find us at From the Sickbed on Instagram, YouTube, and Substack.
Support us by joining our Patreon for bonus content, sending us tips on Ko-fi, or by telling your friends about the podcast. Take care and talk to you next time.